One of the most profound and significant stories told in religious history is that of Pharaoh and prophet Moses, peace be upon him. This story is not only about the clash between oppression and freedom, but also about faith, divine power, and justice. How did Moses, who was raised in Pharaoh's palace, challenge this tyrant and lead the children of Israel to freedom? How did Egypt, once a land of tyranny, become the stage for the manifestation of God's miracles? Let's journey through this extraordinary story as narrated in the Quran. The story of Moses begins in Egypt during a time when Pharaoh ruled with absolute power. Egypt was a land of grandeur and mystery with its towering pyramids and majestic palaces. The Pharaoh, considered a living god, held sway over the land and its people. Pharaoh, a cruel and unjust ruler, had been warned by a prophecy that a child from the children of Israel would rise to challenge him and lead his people to freedom. This prophecy struck fear into the heart of Pharaoh, for it threatened his reign and the stability of his kingdom. Fearing this prophecy, Pharaoh ordered the killing of every male child born to the Israelites. His soldiers scoured the land, enforcing this brutal decree, causing widespread sorrow and despair among the Israelites. Moses' mother, a devout woman, was terrified for her newborn son. She knew that if her child were discovered, he would be killed. Her heart ached with fear and uncertainty, but her faith in God gave her strength. However, she was divinely inspired to place Moses in a basket and set him adrift on the river Nile, trusting in God's plan for her child. With a heavy heart, she placed her precious baby in the basket, hoping against hope that he would be safe. The basket carrying Moses was carried down the Nile River until it came to Pharaoh's palace, where it was discovered by his wife Asiya. The gentle flow of the river guided the basket to its destined place, as if by divine intervention. She immediately recognized the child and, moved by compassion, decided to adopt him as her own. Asiya, known for her kindness and wisdom, saw something special in the baby and felt a deep connection to him. Thus Moses, the one destined to challenge Pharaoh, was raised in Pharaoh's own home. He grew up surrounded by the luxuries of the palace, receiving the best education and training. Little did Pharaoh know that the child he had sought to destroy was being nurtured under his very roof, preparing for the day he would fulfill his destiny. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's palace, enjoying a life of privilege, surrounded by the opulence and grandeur of ancient Egypt. He was raised as a prince, with access to the finest education, food, and luxuries that the royal household could offer. Despite this, Moses always felt a deep connection to his Hebrew roots, yet he was never blind to the suffering of the Israelites. He saw the harsh realities of their lives, the backbreaking labor and the cruel treatment they endured daily. The cries of his people resonated deeply within him, stirring a sense of injustice and empathy. As a young man, he became increasingly aware of the oppression that his people endured under Pharaoh's tyranny. The more he observed, the more he felt compelled to do something about it. His heart ached for the plight of the Israelites, and he began to question his place in the palace. One day, while walking through the city, Moses witnessed an Egyptian beating an Israelite man. The sight filled him with rage and a sense of urgency to act. He could no longer stand by and watch his people suffer. In his anger, Moses intervened, and, in the process, accidentally killed the Egyptian. The realization of what he had done hit him hard. He had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. The weight of his actions bore down on him, and he knew he had to leave. Realizing the gravity of his actions, Moses fled Egypt, fearing Pharaoh's wrath. He knew that staying would mean certain death, as Pharaoh would not tolerate such defiance. With a heavy heart, he left behind the only life he had ever known. Moses fled to the land of Midian, where he found refuge with the prophet Shu'aib, also known as Jethro. The journey was long and arduous, but it led him to a place of safety and new beginnings. There he helped Shu'aib's daughters water their flock and was later invited to stay with their family. This act of kindness marked the start of a new chapter in his life. He found solace in the simplicity of rural life and the warmth of a welcoming community. Moses spent many years in Midian, married one of Shu'aib's daughters, and lived a peaceful life, far from Egypt and Pharaoh's reach. He embraced his new role as a husband and shepherd, finding a sense of purpose and contentment in his new surroundings. The years in Midian were a time of growth and reflection, preparing him for the greater destiny that awaited him. Years passed, and Moses continued his life as a shepherd. However, his destiny was far from over. One day, while traveling in the desert near Mount Sinai, Moses noticed a fire on the mountain. As he approached, he heard a voice calling out from the fire. It was none other than God himself, speaking directly to Moses. God revealed himself to Moses and commanded him to go back to Egypt and deliver his message to Pharaoh, to free the Israelites and abandon the tyranny he had imposed. Moses, feeling unworthy of such a monumental task, hesitated. He asked God to send his brother Aaron to assist him in this mission. God reassured Moses that he would guide them both and help them face Pharaoh. Moses, humbled and empowered, set out to return to Egypt. Moses and Aaron returned to Egypt and, armed with divine commands, went straight to Pharaoh. They presented Pharaoh with God's message: "Let the children of Israel go free, for they are being oppressed in your land." But Pharaoh, arrogant and defiant, rejected Moses' plea and called him a mere magician. Pharaoh mocked Moses, challenging him to perform signs to prove his claim. In response, Moses threw his staff on the ground, and it miraculously turned into a serpent. He then placed his hand under his arm and withdrew it, and it became shining white. Despite these miracles, Pharaoh remained stubborn and accused Moses of sorcery. He gathered his magicians and demanded they replicate Moses' miracle. In an epic confrontation, Pharaoh's magicians cast their staffs and ropes, which appeared to turn into serpents. But Moses, with God's power, threw his staff down again, and it swallowed up all the false serpents. This was a clear sign that the power of God was far superior to the magic of Pharaoh's men. Recognizing the truth, many of Pharaoh's magicians believed in Moses and accepted the faith in the one true God. Pharaoh, however, enraged, threatened them with punishment. But they stood firm in their new belief. Pharaoh's rejection of Moses and his miracles led to God sending a series of devastating plagues upon Egypt. These plagues were clear signs of God's wrath. The river Nile turned to blood, frogs swarmed the land, locusts devoured crops, and other calamities befell the people of Egypt. Despite the suffering, Pharaoh's heart remained hardened, and he refused to release the Israelites. God's punishments continued, but Pharaoh continued to defy God's will. Finally, after the last of the plagues, God commanded Moses to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. Moses, with the Israelites, began their journey toward freedom. Pharaoh, in his pride, decided to pursue them with his army. As they reached the shores of the Red Sea, the Israelites were trapped, and Pharaoh's army was closing in on them. In that moment, God commanded Moses to strike the sea with his staff. The waters parted, creating a dry path for the Israelites to cross. They made their way to safety while Pharaoh's army followed them into the sea. Just as Pharaoh's army reached the middle of the sea, God commanded the waters to return to their original state, and Pharaoh and his soldiers were drowned. The children of Israel were finally freed from the oppression of Pharaoh. They celebrated their miraculous escape, but the lessons of this story are not just about liberation. It teaches us about the dangers of arrogance and pride, and how oppression and tyranny ultimately lead to downfall. Pharaoh, despite all the signs and miracles, chose to remain arrogant and defied the will of God, and his end was tragic. The story of Moses and Pharaoh is one of the greatest examples of faith, courage, and divine justice. It is a tale that has been passed down through generations, inspiring countless individuals to stand firm in their beliefs and trust in a higher power. The narrative is not just a historical account but a timeless lesson that resonates with people from all walks of life. It reminds us that no matter how powerful an oppressor may seem, God's will is always supreme. The might of Pharaoh, with all his armies and wealth, was no match for the divine plan. This story serves as a powerful reminder that justice, though it may be delayed, is inevitable. The forces of oppression and tyranny will always fall before the will of the Almighty. For those who stand firm in their faith and trust in God, the victory will always be theirs in the end. The journey may be fraught with challenges and hardships, but unwavering faith and perseverance will lead to triumph. Moses' steadfastness in the face of adversity is a beacon of hope for all who face seemingly insurmountable odds. This story also teaches us the importance of humility and submission to the will of God. Moses, despite his initial reluctance, accepted his divine mission with humility and dedication. His journey from a prince of Egypt to a humble shepherd and then to the leader of his people is a testament to the transformative power of faith and obedience. Pharaoh's refusal to humble himself led to his destruction, while Moses' unwavering faith brought deliverance to his people. The contrast between the two figures highlights the consequences of pride and the rewards of humility. Pharaoh's downfall serves as a cautionary tale for those who let arrogance cloud their judgment. If you found this story inspiring and want to learn more about the teachings of the prophets and the powerful lessons they offer, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Engaging with these stories can provide valuable insights and guidance for our own lives. By subscribing, you ensure that you won't miss out on future content that delves deeper into these timeless teachings. Don't forget to share this video with others to spread the message of faith, patience, and trust in God's plan. Sharing these stories can help others find strength and inspiration in their own journeys. Thank you for watching and being a part of this community. May we all take the lessons from the story of Moses and Pharaoh to heart and strive to live with faith, integrity, and humility. Let us remember that true strength lies in our ability to remain steadfast in our beliefs and humble in our actions. These virtues can guide us through the most challenging times and lead us to a life of purpose and fulfillment. Until next time, stay blessed. Continue to seek wisdom and understanding, and let the stories of the past illuminate your path forward. May your journey be filled with faith, hope, and love.